Time to talk real estate. Australia's property price growth has reached a new high and there is no sign demand is slowing. Every capital city is showing double-digit increases. Joining me live is Flaherty from The Economist at REA Group. And how are you, Anne? First off, these stats, the data, it's interesting.
Yeah, good morning. I mean, it just seems like we're breaking record after record here. So the ABS released their latest property price index last week and showed that just over June, we saw 6.7% growth, bringing the total value of Australia's dwelling market to just under $9 trillion. Now, I remember a few months ago talking about the big news that we just hit $8 trillion. So the fact that we're now just under 9 is staggering. What makes that growth even more staggering is if you consider that we've increased by $500 billion just in one quarter. Now, as you mentioned, we've seen double-digit property growth in the greater capital cities across Australia, in every single one. So Sydney and Canberra have seen the strongest growth at 19%. And then behind them was the Greater Hobart area at 18%. The rest are sort of in that 14 to 15% growth range. Darwin had the weakest growth at a very strong 13%. So we're talking very strong property growth across Australia.
What's driving these prices?
Look, it's the same story. Interest rates really are the key driver here of the property prices. Debt is more affordable. If you consider that, when an interest rate falls, properties don't increase overnight. It takes time for that growth to happen, and we're still feeling the impact of those lower interest rates. Now, it was pretty interesting. Last week, Philip Lowe talked about his expectation that interest rates are not likely to increase before 2024. There's been a lot of talk in the market, particularly from economists, that and especially from those working at banks and other financial institutions, that the RBA would actually raise interest rates in 2023. So to hear Philip Lowe so bluntly state that he doesn't expect them to rise before 2024 is likely to provide a bit more confidence to buyers as well, that their mortgage repayments aren't likely to increase significantly anytime soon.
Yeah, 3 years. Yep, continue.
Yeah, so the other thing that we're seeing is that demand is still extremely strong. So we track demand on realestate.com.au, and what we've seen is a new record broken in the number of views that we're seeing per listing. So we're seeing more people looking at every property that comes up for sale than we've ever seen in the past. The other thing that we're seeing is that properties come up for sale on realestate.com and then they're off really, really quickly. So we're seeing the properties sell very quickly as well. Buyers know that if they want to be successful, they need to make a competitive offer, and they need to make that offer quickly if they're going to be successful.
Another 3-year hold on those interest rates, as you just mentioned. It's great for those with mortgages. It does make it awfully difficult for retirees that are relying on their savings, their superannuation.
Absolutely. And that might be part of the reason that we're starting to see more investors back in the market. There's this desperate search for yield out there. If you put your money in the bank, you're not going to get anything back from it. So people are starting to think, what can I do with my savings to actually generate some income? And, this is particularly pertinent for retirees. So again, we've seen, I think it was 9 consecutive months of growth in the number of new loans going to investors. And, again, on realestate.com.au, we track not buyer activity, but user activity. And we have seen a big increase in investors as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And of course, the full roadmap will be released by Daniel Andrews tomorrow for Melbourne. But one of the suite of changes that has happened or is happening at the moment is that inspections are allowed to happen again. You must be expecting a bumper back end of the spring in Melbourne and Sydney for that matter.
Well, I think in Melbourne, this is really, really good news for people looking to sell properties and also for people looking to buy. It should help to increase the supply levels a bit, driving a bit more confidence from vendors that, if people can go and look at the property for sale, they're probably going to have a better outcome. So, at the same time, though, as we get closer and closer to those vaccine thresholds, there are probably a contingent of would be vendors who are biding their time and waiting until perhaps we reach that 80% mark. But I do agree that as soon as physical inspections are allowed, we are going to see an increase in the number of properties come up for sale.
Yeah, it's been one of the big positives for those that own property, hasn't it? The whole COVID-19 period for a year and a half, it's been remarkable. And
Oh,
we'll chat again next week, huh?
all right. See you then.